Boom, 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 boom. Today, on the third and improved episode of Made by Sloan, I'm making a clock. But not just any clock, I'm making a clock for your bedside table. I'm using inspiration from the Nixie tube. Oh, come on, guys. Well, here's one naked. I've always loved these things, and many people before me have made their own modern interpretations on what a Nixie tube could be, with varying levels of success. But this episode is the journey I took to make my own Nixie tube clock, or at least it will be after this guy finishes talking. Hey! So the world has changed a lot since we made episode 2, and since I fixed the lens that I'm looking at you guys through right now. It is April 2020. There is a plague affecting the whole world, but you don't need me to tell you about that because you're living in the same world I am. And of course, it's affecting every province, every country, every continent a little bit differently. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. All I can say is I wish everybody the best. I hope you and your family is doing well out there. And I think the best that we can do is to try and live the best life we can. And I'm going to try and put a little bit more content out there, try and get this YouTube channel off the ground. And hopefully a few of you can get a little bit of entertainment out of it, or maybe even learn something from it. So that said, even trying to make these videos has gotten more difficult. Amazon doesn't have next day deliveries anymore. They're now next month deliveries in my case. So even just sourcing materials with stores being closed is a bit difficult. Luckily, I'm a bit of a hoarder, and this business has existed for a few years, meaning that I have all kinds of bits and bobs and parts already here at the shop. So I think I'm going to be able to stick with my plan, which if you've seen my last video, you'll know that the plan was to make a Nixie tube clock. Kind of a modern interpretation of a Nixie tube clock. And I'm sure from the thumbnail you've probably seen a bit of it too, but that's what we're going to do today. So I've tracked down most of the parts. I might have to take you through the shop to find some more parts later, but I've got what I need to get started. So we're going to dive into that now. I think I'm all set up to show you what I'm doing, and we're going to time lapse right through the production in CAD, in the computer, to make this thing. And then of course we'll start the journey of making the real thing. But there's no way I'm going to be able to do this on my own, so I need some help from my friend Caffeine here. Not sponsored. This guy is going to get me through the journey. So that said, let's get started.
And there we go. That's the design done. So the 3D modeling is finished. I'm really happy with this design. I think my favorite part is right on the bottom where the wood kind of curves with the knobs on each side. That really makes me think of like 1980s radio / vinyl players where you had the volume knob and the tuner knob, and that was like your only buttons on the whole thing. That little change really makes me feel retro, which I love because of course we're designing this around a modern interpretation of the Nixie tube. And the Nixie tubes are very much a retro thing. They were like a cylindrical vacuumed piece of glass that had a bunch of filaments in it, and then you'd light up a different filament and that would give you a different number. This time, we're doing 10 different pieces of acrylic instead, and as we light up each piece of acrylic, we're getting a different number. So if we light it up with like a reddish or reddish amber, it's gonna give a very, it's gonna give a passing, appearance of a Nixie tube. But then of course, because we're using modern LEDs, we can do full color and do full rainbow and crazy stuff as well. And speaking of the LEDs, this is what we're using. So of course I had to use stuff that I found around the shop. So I ran around, I was able to find these potentiometers. These are a 0 to 10K potentiometer. So I got a couple of those. And then these are addressable LEDs. These are kind of like a special one. Not only are they really high density, they're 144 density. So it's 144 pixels per meter, but they're also just really tiny. Normally you get 50/50, which is 5 mil by 5 mil. And I think these are closer to like 3 or 3.5 mil. They're just tiny little addressable LEDs, but we'll be able to tell every single pixel be a different color, and they're perfectly programmable. So they're small, which lets us make the whole thing very small. And they're of course fully addressable, so we can do all kinds of crazy colors. But 144 density wasn't quite enough for me, because if I was to mark out 10 pixels would be something like that, which that would mean like each layer of LEDs would be that wide, which would just be way too much. So what I did is I cut them in half. Basically I have five pixels, and instead of doing one strip of 10, we're doing 2 strips of 5 and offsetting them so that we're actually getting, instead of 144, 288 pixel per meter density, and that's what lets us do it so small. So yeah, everything's already lined up. The pieces, like even the LEDs, I modeled those too. They're in this file as well. So I should be pretty much ready to just export these individual layers so that they can be sent to the laser cutter. And then of course we'll cut the top pieces and the bottom pieces out of a Baltic birch, so a plywood, and then we'll cut all of the letters or numbers out of acrylic. So those will be able to be illuminated by this guy, and then of course be engraved so they can light up nicely. And then everything else we have in stock. So I found these acorn nuts. They're just a 1/4 thread acorn nut. So we'll be able to use those top and bottom, and then just threaded rod to hold it all together. And then of course a bit of electronics too, but I'm getting ahead of myself. First, we better build the thing. So I guess I should stop speaking, run back there, track down the materials, and we'll start cutting.
Cheers. All right. So, some of these fell straight through out of the laser, and some of these will need to get punched out. So, why don't I start with that? Six or 9. So a couple of edits to be made for sure, but as a proof of concept, I gotta say that's working pretty darn well. So I'm very happy with that, and it's definitely enough to press on to the next step. So this is the end of day number 1. I've been working on this for maybe about 6 hours or so, and the main things I need to fix are the gaps between them are too small, so it's kind of blowing out there. And just trying to get 10 pieces in a row is very difficult. I can't imagine trying to get all 60. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take every second number, and I'm gonna offset it either right or left. So instead of them having little slots between them, there will actually be a physical one on the right, a physical one on the left, and that'll make it a lot easier to put them all together. I'm also gonna recut these. My settings weren't quite right, so they didn't quite punch out as nicely as I'd like. So I'm gonna recut the numbers, make a bit of a design change to the wood here so that it's a little bit easier to put together, and then I think we're ready to actually build this thing for real. So I think it's time for an awesome montage, and let's get this thing built.
Here we go. So this is day 2 of this project. The first one worked really well. I did some tests, I was really happy with the tests, but there's a few things I just kind of overlooked, like one of those things like tolerances on a computer look like they're gonna work, but when it actually comes to using them, they're maybe a little bit too fragile. So that one wasn't gonna work, but it proved that the theory is working well, so that's awesome. I made a few changes to the file, and now we've got all these new pieces ready to sort and peel and everything else, but there's a couple things I need. One, this is way too much work for myself, which means I need help. And today I'm not getting help from just caffeine. The management is here to help me as well. So the two of us are gonna pluck all these things, get them ready to go, and we'll get a little video montage going for you. And here it is. The wiring is finally done. We have 2 LEDs, one on the top, one on the bottom of every single segment. I'm super proud of this because basically there is, although there's power and everything to the top and there are LEDs up there, there's no wires. Basically we're just using these bolts. 3 of these bolts are being used as ground, data, and power. So it's completely seamless. You can't see any wires because the bolts themselves are moving the data we need. And it's only 5-volt LEDs, so I could even I can touch any of these in any combination and you won't even feel it. The only issue you'd have is if you set this down on a metal table, because then you'd be shorting out the connections. But yeah, it's working brilliantly. All the LEDs are working great. LEDs in the top and bottom means that the light is super diffused. Basically, instead of having like hot spots, because we're lighting it from top and bottom, they're super evenly lit and they just look so good. So now all that's left to do is basically, instead of just having an Arduino lighting these things up, we're gonna put an RTC, a real-time clock, this little guy, in there, wired up with the Arduino, so that this guy tells what time it is. And you can actually see on here, it's got a battery on the back. So this guy, even if you unplug it, put it in the closet for a month, pull it out and plug it back in, it should still know what time it is. So this is gonna do kind of the normal day-to-day clock keeping stuff, and then the Arduino just has to know if it's a 6, if it's the 6th hour, it has to know which matrix and which pixel in that matrix to turn on. So that's what's left to do, which means I just have to write a bunch of code, and that's not all that interesting. So I'm just gonna shoot through that real quick in a time lapse, and then we'll get back to this thing hopefully in a finished state. It's only 8 o'clock, I'm making pretty good progress, so there's a good chance I might even be out of here before midnight. And I have some caffeine left, so we're good to go. Let's dive into it and get this code finished off. Hey everybody, so it's day 5, and you know what that means. This is finished, right?
Flashback.
So today, day 3, is my final day working on this project. If I need to be here till 2 o'clock in the morning, that's what I'm gonna do.
End of flashback.
No, I was gonna stay as late as I needed to on day 3 to get this finished. And you know what? I pretty much did. It was working. It was counting time. I even had some animations in there for when it cycles. I was so happy. And then on day 4, I was like, just to finish off this video, I'm just gonna get these 2 knobs wired up so that one is brightness, one is color, and I'll be done. But I used a computer I don't normally use to do that programming, and after a full day of calling up my brother, who's a computer engineer, to give me a little bit of help, just because not that I can't figure this stuff out, but if you've done programming and wiring like this before, I'm sure you found yourself in that situation where you keep looking at something and you're looking at the same thing again and again and again, and you just can't see the problem anymore. So I just needed some fresh eyes on it. He gave me some help, gave me some advice, and it ended up being nothing either of us thought could be the problem. It looks like something got fried, either when I plugged it into that other computer or in transport it got shock or something. But basically, when I power this thing on, it does this. This code, by the way, isn't the original code. This isn't the working code that I might have got something wrong. I completely gutted it and wrote code that does nothing but turn the pixels on so that all the variables could be canceled out to figure out exactly what's going on. And it's doing this. So it seems like we blew something up, and you know what? Things just have gone a little bit too rough in this project, so I need a wardrobe change. I'll be right back. This is precisely how I feel right now. Just fetal position, I'm responsible. I'm gonna see this to the end. Yeah. So without further ado, I've got my motivation. Let's get this thing fixed. It's my computer. the end of day 5, and it is finished. I am so happy with the end result here. I think it turned out just great. We had some weird problems getting it done, but here we are at the finish line. And we'll give you a quick walkthrough of it. So we got 2 knobs in the front here. We've of course gone analog with them, with like the smooth acting potentiometer, make it kind of feel and look like a retro piece of technology. And the right knob, or the my right, your left knob here, is just for brightness. And then the other knob is for your mode. So right now we've got a full kind of rainbow effect, making full use of those addressable pixels. And then we can just change it to a more static color. Because of course, if you have this sitting beside your bed or something, maybe you don't want like a rainbow all through the night. I'm really a fan of like the deep orange, like almost red. It makes me think of the original Nixie tubes, which of course this is based off of, which were like this little vacuum glass thing with a physical filament through there. This kind of feels like we're going back to the roots of what a Nixie tube was and kind of what they could do. It just feels kind of raw to me. I love it. Yeah, so, and then of course if we keep dialing through the modes there, we also have just like a full white, the full rainbow, so you can choose whatever color you want, adjust your brightness in any mode, or of course do the full rainbow here. It turned out great. I'm so happy with it. I'm in fact even happy enough with it that I'm considering putting some time into some computer work and making a printed circuit board for all of that soldering. So all that soldering mess, getting all the pixels in the right place, all that stuff. I'm thinking about making a circuit board that does all that. So it's just a bunch of sandwiched layers of, you know, wood and acrylic and a circuit board where anybody could put it together at home. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, or something that, you know, you'd be interested in buying for a gift for a friend or something, let me know. Send me, you know, drop a message in the comments. And if there's enough interest, maybe I will put the effort into building a couple of circuit boards for this and put a kit together. So you can buy a kit with all of your threaded rods, all the nuts, all the wood finished, all the laser work already done, and you just assemble it with like basic soldering skills, like basically connect power to it, and you're ready to go. The whole thing runs off 5 volts, so it'll run off a USB port. You can plug it into like, you know, the charger beside your bed for your iPhone or whatever, and it would power up. So it's kind of a good candidate for a kit. And if people want to make one, or want to give a kit as a gift, I'm totally down to make it. So anyway, before I ramble on too much, this has been an absolute pleasure working on this. Maybe not like day 3 and day 4, but like as a total thing, it's been amazing seeing this thing come together, being able to make a project just because I want to make a project and just because I think it would make good content. So thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you are enjoying these videos. If you are, check out the other ones we have, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I guess we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey everybody, future Sloan here. I'm just finishing editing up this video, and there's 2 things crossing my mind. 1, man, that clock still looks so good. And 2, I know that like so many of you, even though this is our 3rd episode and we have a view count of like nothing, that just can't wait to figure out where they can get that shirt. Well, you can get it on not my merch store. We're brand new. We don't have a store. And my design skills aren't that clever or awesome. That shirt was actually made by a fellow YouTuber by the name of Jazza. He has a few really cool videos that I've watched in the past, and he has that amazing shirt that as soon as I saw it, I knew I needed to have one of my very own. But he doesn't sell it in like black and green, so I ordered one, and then I kind of made my own in my own colors. So I hope if he ever sees this that he's okay with that. But amazing design, love his stuff, love his shirt. Check out the link in the description if you want to get your own. Things are a little crazy right now, but we're going to try and bring some more videos to you soon. So let us know in the comments what you like, what you don't like, what you'd love to see, and we'll catch you in the next one.